Good evening, all. How are you doing? Jeff, Strumwood Guitars, thanks for being here. Yeah, this is just a continuing series. Didn't really know how much work was going to be involved in this, but it's been kind of fun because it's just a progressional thing rather than the kind of common, especially with guitar repair, I find, and that's one of the reasons what's kind of led me to start doing this stuff. But is here's it's broken, and then you go to the next pick and it's fixed. So for me myself, learning the craft, that was a cool thing, is to kind of guess what happened in the middle. And some people were really open about sharing. what they did and how they did it. And that's kind of what the live streams are. At least that's my vision. It's now children are in bed o'clock, so this is actually when I come down and start working, and it's just kind of cool because I've got the ability to set this all up and kind of have you come join me. So yeah, hope everything is going well and you're here for some kind of chill environment. I don't really fully know what the game plan is for tonight, but I generally always come in with kind of a minor thing I want to do. If you have been following along, we do have a couple different guitars that have the same issue on them. So when we are looking at any of this kind of stuff, they're very similar in the way that they are broken, the way that they snap, the way that the pressure kind of hit on them. So they were both fully severed, like broken 2 pieces, 3 pieces actually, headstocks. And the first one that I did, whatever that was last week, we kind of started to put this all back together, and that was gluing the headstock in, trying to get it together, and hope for the best, so to speak. And this one, you can kind of see this little gap. There's a little white gap here, and that's the finish. You can see that it didn't perfectly line up, but that's okay. That's what tonight's for. And then this one is the second one, which went together much cleaner. So even on its own, you can, not really notice a huge difference there, which is kind of the idea. So on this one, the only kind of blemish here is this little drop fill of where the lacquer kind of broke off, but it's nothing too serious. And again, we're about to spray it, so it's not a big deal. But obviously, as far as trying to fix these, budget comes into play, but also just how much time you want to be putting together in that, whether it was something that you want to invest the time to get this ready for paint and refinish and lacquer and buff and polish. There's quite a few steps that are involved, even though this is a minor break, so to speak. We kind of have that option. So let me just see if I can quickly fix that. Is it that one? Basecamp, yeah, it's this one. See if I can break my computer as I do this. A little bit better. But yeah, you can actually see the how clean this is coming together, which will make this really nice and easy. And then the other day, Tuesday, we started to actually scrape and sand this top part, and obviously you can see that the sheen is off of it, but we are looking at oh, that was good timing. We are looking at a good transition between all of this, which is going to obviously make our job so much easier because we don't have to refinish. We didn't get down to wood. We don't have to use wood filler or any pore filler, which obviously is a concern if you get down too deep. So thankfully we're just kind of scuffing up the area, the surrounding area, which will make the next couple of steps a little bit easier. This may show these transition periods in here. You can kind of see this little divot is exactly going to be covered underneath the truss rod cover, so I'm not terribly worried about that. But as far as the these little side things, they may show up ever so slightly, but I don't think it's really going to be all that noticeable. It's one of those things where it's like, of course, I look at it and I can see that that's, oh yeah, it's been a broken headstock or whatever, or it's, it's like that when you get that dot on your clothing kind of thing. And no one notices it until you tell them about it. So there is a little bit of that. I'm hoping that it gets fully covered because it's completely smooth. There is no bumps or humps. That's when that stuff starts to become a bit of an issue. So with all of that, it's the same on either side. On both of these guitars, it's really the same issue and the same prep status. So I've spent all of yesterday and a little bit today just getting these all ready for paint, so there's no more sanding or scraping. We don't have to watch any more of that. And so we're going to clean these up and get them ready for paint, and kind of how I prep and do airbrushing. I'm going to be using airbrushing, and before I even get into this, it's not my strong suit, but it is something that is fairly easy to get really good results if you kind of know what you're doing. And I always go quite light when I'm spraying this. A lot of people will go in quite heavy, and then you start getting blotching because you're trying to cover or get to this high sheen black right off the bat, and it's just not going to happen. So patience is a huge thing when you're doing any form of finish work, as I keep saying. And then same thing with the red. So we're going to do a couple light coats and see if we can get that just better colored. So we're going to try and find a color match in between these and then get close to that. And then we're just going to basically do the two of them at the same time. So as we have the red, we'll just spray both, and then we'll do a couple coats of that, and then we'll go to the black and do a couple coats of that. I'm not really too worried about overspray because it's pretty minor as far as anything that's going to get kind of underneath it. It's just overspray. Normally, if this was like a huge refinish job, I'd tape it off, put it in the booth, do one color, come back, do the next color, but it's not. We're not spraying that much paint, so we should be just fine. We are going to do some prep work just on the fingerboard. We want to make sure that there's nothing there, and I think I might knock these nuts out just so that I don't have to worry about them. They're a little difficult to tape, so it's just easier to put them back in after. And yeah, so that's that. Hopefully this is wonderful to watch, and yeah, we'll just kind of get into it. And a sip of my coffee first. So, painter's tape is where I go with all of this. And I'm not gonna go, I was kind of talking about this on the last one, but what I a lot of times will, or what I used to do, is because like if I'm looking at the finish, let me grab the one that's a little bit worse, just because it's easier to see. So if I were wanting to be painting this area, what I used to do is I would actually put like a big thick piece of tape like right behind it, because I didn't want to have to paint over anything else. It's funny because that actually became much more noticeable than anything else, because I had this absolutely perfect line going down the back of my headstock. Same thing on the front. So if I just wanted to paint this section, I would put it, especially over the inlay, I would actually put a big piece of tape going across it, and then after we've done a couple coats of whatever color it is you're spraying, a couple coats of lacquer, just to cover it and make sure that the paint doesn't come off. Now all of a sudden you've got this big ridge, and it's a huge noticeable transition, which is kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do. So what I've done recently when I've been doing these, I've got about 4 other painting jobs that I'm doing right now, which is a little bizarre because I don't normally do this much finish work. But in any case, with all of those, I've actually just been using the airbrush, putting on a lower kind of spray, and just watching my strokes. So now I'm not going as far up, but it feathers in very, very nicely. And then once we sand that with the 1000 to 2000 grit, just to kind of make it all blend, polish it up, you don't even notice a transition. So that has actually worked really well for me. Perhaps you have a better solution or a better option, which is great. Feel free to share that, because that's the one thing, and it's one of those things where, especially with finish work, I mean, really in all guitar repair, you can't get better unless you keep doing it. You can read all the books you want. For me personally, it's really a hands-on thing. You have to get on, you have to feel how everything kind of reacts to one another, and when we start getting to a little bit more setups, that will come very true. So yeah, so I can see that we got quite a bit of dust on here. So the first thing I do is I actually clean this with naphtha, aka a lighter fluid. And all that's doing is just taking the oils off of the fingerboard, or anything that we're kind of working on. So I just rub it over the whole section, trying to get rid of any kind of dust that's in there. Off the fingerboard and stuff, and then you can kind of get a little bit of a better idea of what it is that you're kind of looking at. I saw a buildup in there, but now it's gone, so that's exactly what I wanted. As soon as you hit that with, an airbrush, there's air, so you blow air, and now all of a sudden you have these little particles sitting in your finish, which sucks. Yeah, okay, so there's one, and let's do the other one. Yeah, this one actually, I'm just noticing there's another crack in behind this. This is the stress crack. It has nothing to do with kind of what we did. I don't know if that's going to show up at all. Where is it? Yeah, I can't even see it. It's right in here. Yeah, it's not even showing up. It's basically a crack that's underneath the finish. So, oh, I am kind of catching it. I might luck out with lacquer. When the lacquer goes on it, I might burn into that, but I don't think so because these epis are like a poly. It's a really thick lacquer that's on these, so it's not quite as fragile, if you will, as your standard kind of nitro. All right, step 1. Step 2, yeah, I think I'm just gonna quickly knock these nuts out. And all I'm doing with this knife is just kind of scoring the area around it, just in case there's a little bit of finish or anything that's covering the two of them over, because a lot of times there is just a dab of whatever. And then when you start to kind of put pressure on that, there's a good chance that it's going to crack through your finish. Ask me how I know. That's the one question I get asked actually often. So especially from like, which is great, but from like the younger kids and stuff, when they're, hey, I really want to get into guitar repair. Like, what do you recommend? Have oodles of patience, because you're going to make mistakes, and it's also troubleshooting. Those are kind of the two things. So have patience, and when you make a mistake is how you can quickly solve it and fix it before you lose your said patience. So, and that, I mean, in all honesty, that's really the truth. So you're going to spend a lot of time fixing the same thing over and over again, whether it's crack, structure. Your first couple setups are probably not the greatest thing that you're doing on your guitars, or maybe they are, but you've probably done quite a few of them to get there. So that's kind of my point. So as you kind of keep doing it, you go, oh, that really sucked when I did that. I'll do it better on the next one. And that's how I've learned on all of this stuff. So I get excited for the next one, because it's like, this will be even better. And quite frankly, these are a great example of that, because if you remember, there was a huge chip out, and I'm excited to see how this finishes up. The client doesn't care how these look, so these are already going to look 100 times better than when I got them. But filling that huge void in with super glue or cyanoacrylate, was a black one, which isn't something I would normally do, but it looks good here. There's a lot of prep work that's gone into it. It's nice and smooth, so I'm hoping that when we start putting some finish on here, it just goes away. And that's exciting for me, because now that's something that I've just learned on this boat. There's a good chance that I'm going to put some paint on this and it's going to look terrible when it cures, and then I have to strip it and kind of come up with another plan. I've definitely done that before as well. Actually, I can maybe use this. Just a coaster I have near me. It's not my official nut hammer outer. Though I could sell them though. Do the same thing on this one. Oh, that's a shame. This one is in here really nice. It's not the most common thing to be seeing from the factory. Yeah, there's a little lacquer chip coming off of it, and that's the whole reason why I'm just basically scoring it. I'm not like pressing into the nut, I'm just breaking any of that kind of lacquer that's sitting over that. I don't know if you heard that, but you can kind of hear you can hear when it loosens. Cool. those aside. I'll forget where I put those later. All right, so the first one. So strategy, I think I'm going to do red first. And so how this is going to go, or what I'm going to be doing, is I'm going to take these off, get ready, I'm going to spray the first coat of red, and we'll do it a couple times, kind of going back and forth between the two guitars. And then when it gets kind of close, what I normally do is do maybe 3, maybe 4 really, really light coats, kind of crisscrossing, going back and forth. I'll explain as we get there, but and then once that is close to drying, it goes pretty quick because it's really light. Then we'll flip it over and do the black. I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so either way, we're going to prep the fingerboard. Actually, what I do on these ones is go with the thin stuff along the edge of the fingerboard to give me a nice sharp line. And then after, I will use the thick stuff just to kind of fill it all in. This was always my favorite thing. I used to detail trucks way back in the day. I didn't do any of the spraying, like the painting, but that was my job with all the prep work, and I learned a lot of tricks from people that have been doing this for a long time. And it's funny because it was one of those things where I'm like, I absolutely hate this job. I'm never gonna do this again. And here I am, remembering what Walter taught me. So wherever you are, Walter, thanks, man. And you might be thinking, yo, Jeff, you just said that you don't tape them off because you're going to have a transition line. Correct. Except for on the fingerboard. Just because I don't want that to get onto the frets. I don't want that to get on the fingerboard. The rest of the guitar, you know, quote unquote, I'm not really too worried about it because I can just kind of sand any of the spackle, if you will. Any of the overspray, I can just kind of sand that off. It gets knocked off really quickly, again, because it's so light. So it's not something I have to worry about. Getting it on your frets and on your fingerboard, now all of a sudden I have to do a fret job, or I have to do, which it's not really something I want to do. So I'll spend 5 minutes and prep the guitar accordingly. Actually, let's just rip that. Pressing nice and hard along the edge and then cutting that in. Actually, cut that little strip off. Then, is it this one? And because the nuts fit, for the most part, they fit pretty good. One of them does, the other one is mediocre. But I'm just going to put some tape on the nut shelf. That way, when it goes back in, it's not raised just that much, and I'll just cut it off on the edges. There's one end. Okay, I'm cutting tape. I was trying to be like, hey, look what I'm doing. It's not that exciting. There we go. So now I can just pick that off and there won't be any glue or any paint or lacquer sitting in there. So that might even be too much. And that's that. That's literally all the prep work I'm going to do. I'm going to take off this Made in Indonesia sticker because obviously we're going to be spraying around this. And then in the future, if this were to ever go this way, rather, and then if there's a sticker sitting right here, you can see the shine off of it. And then what happens is that this is a fairly new one. This is actually a 2021 base, so it hasn't been used a whole heck of a lot yet. But when that little sticker falls off, now there's going to be this like square of totally different finish. Not that it, not that it matters, but I'm a perfectionist. Okay. Right. It's a very unnecessarily sticky sticker. There we go. Alright. Okay. Yeah, no, that came off. I am going to use another round because I've been rubbing my hands and stuff on it. I'm going to use another hand of naphtha on there, so that's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm wearing off all the residue, so that's good. I'm going to take off this inspection as well. I don't think I'm going to, actually, you know what? I'm not going to be spraying that high. It's okay. I'm only going to be to about here. There's also a natural transition. It might be a little bit better on this camera. Nope. There's actually a natural transition right here, which is where the kind of the scarf joint of that comes in together anyway. So I'm going to stop right around there so that I'm not adding a whole heck of a lot, but that's what that's going to be. Okay, so for the most part, that one actually is pretty good. I don't know if those are deep, so I don't think I'm going to worry about that. Again, I'm not spraying up there, and when we start airbrushing, if you have no experience with airbrushing, it's a very controlled spray, so and it's very light. So I think I might get a little overspray on it, but it's nothing that I can't remove. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'll be much happier with the results if I don't. So. And then sometimes what I do, this one, it's not exposed, but if you had like an actual Gibson, you'd have the acorn nut for the truss rod. I actually would wrap that in tape or remove it entirely and wrap the threads, whichever is easier. And I'm just gonna throw that down there just so that it's kind of taking some of that space. Actually, I don't know if that's necessary, to be honest. I don't think it's really staying there. All right, so that one's good. Now let's do the other one. So this one has a little bit more to be doing on the red. So I'm going to be coming up over. And again, in past, I would actually take this section of the red and tape this off and kind of come up with this like stinger, which is really like a big sharp V going on the back so that it looks different. Sometimes you can also, like, again, depends on the client, depends on what you're doing, but some people would actually take that and spray this black so that it's like, no, absolutely, it's got a broken headstock, but you can't see it because I painted it black. This is a red neck. In my opinion, I think that looks kind kind of hokey. But if you were to spray the whole back side of this black, and then it came to a point, okay, like at least it kind of looks like a transition, but I think it stands out quite a bit. Obviously this isn't going to be perfect, but you know, we're trying to get it as close as we can. Again, I'm looking at it from the experience part rather than just like, whatever, it's a $400 base or whatever it is. So anyway, so that would be one thing, you know, like I said, past me used to do. I don't do that anymore, and I'll show you why. Because again, when you start spraying it, it's like, oh, okay, that actually works quite well. There's no stickers in the way. This one fell up quite a bit, the inspected by, so that's okay. And then we'll just do the same thing. We'll just tape off the fingerboard, and we're pretty much good to go. And then I think, I'm just kind of thinking as I do this, what I want to do in the meantime. I think the next one I'm going to do as I'm kind of carrying on with this, or rather in between coats, is I have a ukulele that I've had for a while, but it had some severe humidity issues, and the thing, well, you'll see it, it warped and wobbled and did all sorts of things. So I think that's going to be the project I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to inspect it. Like, I've had that probably for, I would say, about 2 months, maybe 3 months, and it settled down. When I got it, it looked like a potato chip. It was bad. I believe that was a flood, if I'm not mistaken. I've actually had a couple clients that had some pretty massive floods, unfortunately. So it's not something that I'm on the West Coast, so it's not something that we see a whole heck of a lot of. Is too much humidity where they get they start to balloon, like literally. Whereas a lot of dry guitars and cracked guitars is something I see often. But in this particular case, on this ukulele, it got so wet, and then they were trying to dry it out, that they put it in front of a fireplace. That was pretty rapid. So unfortunately, they did more harm than good. But we'll see what we have to do in that. I'm kind of hoping that all the glue failed on it, just because that makes my job a lot easier. But when, I don't even remember how much damage was on there, to be honest, because I believe it was just the top and bottom was separating, and I don't think there was any cracks. I don't think any cracks came through it, which is always nice. So again, all I'm doing is I'm just running the tape along the fingerboard edge. I'm just getting that as sharp and as clean as I can. And then when I'm sanding, the next step, once this all kind of cures, the next step is I generally do probably 1000 grit wet sandpaper, and then that just kind of brings it all together and gives you that nice glassy feel. And then you go to taste. If you need to go up to 2, or if you need to go up to 3, 3500. I don't go much higher than that, because then you get to the point of where that one section is flawless and then the rest of the guitar isn't, and now you're making it I mean, your section looks fantastic, but there's a good chance that now all of a sudden it's going to stand out quite a bit because it looks so much better. If that makes any sense. Cool. Oh yeah, shelf. So that edge wasn't tight enough, so I have some slack, so I just moved it, and we'll try it again. And again, in this area, I'm just trying to make sure that there isn't finish going into the nut slot or the nut shelf. I'm not too worried about just the front part there, because again, there's going to be a truss rod covering that all up. I'd rather pull a little piece of tape up than cut a new nut or figure out how much finish I put on there and take that out of the nut, or but to each their own, right? Cool. All right. Gander at this, and I believe we are going to be ready to go here. Yeah, I'm just thinking about that again. Do I want to spray black? Because that's the top, and then if I spray over it, no, because I got to do the sides. Yeah. How about this one? This one I kind of do too. So actually, I had a change of mind. Because I'm spraying red, all I'm gonna do, actually I'll show you a little trick here, is I'm just gonna put some onto the face of the headstock. And now when we're spraying, we're not going to be spraying directly onto the black. I mean, seems pretty straightforward, but just thought I'd clear that one up. So here's another trick I got from Walter, but I have actually seen other people do this. Man, Walter with his shoutouts tonight. I was like 15 years ago. Okay, I got some 4 here. So I just have some 400 grit sandpaper. And all we're gonna do is just run it over the edge. Actually, I'm gonna grab a block. Do I have one handy? Yep. And I'm just grabbing the edge of this because all I want it to do is very lightly sand kind of down. And what you're doing is just kind of wearing through the tape line. I'm not on the edge, I'm not on the, I'm not actually sanding the guitar. I'm just sanding through the tape. Makes any sense? And then we get close enough. I don't think we're quite there yet. That's the thing, you never want to go too far. So I'm very lightly doing this. There we go. Now we're starting to wear through. And now, yeah, I haven't gone quite deep enough. This should keep breaking on us. But now what that's done is it's given us this razor sharp edge because you've just worn through the edges rather than trying to cut that or use scissors or a knife or whatever. I didn't go hard enough. But at this stage, I don't want to sand into the finish because I don't have to clean it up. I'm ready for paint. I don't want to make it worse. It's funny because I was painting trucks. Actually, it was dump trucks is what it was. And I thought I would never use that again. And when I was painting my room, painting our living room, I did this around the edges into the sandpaper, and it was just this really clean line that ran around. Made me feel good about it. No one notices that crap. I sure do. I think it's one of those things where you have an appreciation for it because you do it. The untrained eye or whatever, you would, yeah, no clue. But there you go. So now you've got this like really nice, clean, reflective, sharp line that's going on there. I'm not spraying up here, so I'm not too worried that that's not perfect. It's just this area in here that I'm kind of focusing on. But in any case, that's a great way of just making sure that you have a nice razor sharp line. So I'll do this part. And you can start to see how this just starts to poke through. Well, that tape is very reflective. I guess green screen, that makes sense. But in any case, I guess trust me when I say that. Where are we? Right here. So you can start to see how it just starts to wear through on the edges. And I'm just going enough that it starts to break up. And then I can come back with my my sharp hobby knife and just grab that edge, and then it should just peel right off, which is actually quite satisfying. And then after this should be basically all the prep. It'll be ready to go. Sometimes the spraying can take a long time, depends on what you're finishing and how you're finishing and what you're trying to do and like what type of lacquer or top coat you're putting on there. If you're mixing colors, can you get to that color? Can you blend it? Are you going lighter, heavier? And that's where years of experience come in for sure. Especially to make it like flawless, where you're like, that was broken before, which is obviously what we're trying to aim for, but I'm just gonna throw a little dab of tape in that exposed area. So that one's good. We'll quickly do this other one and then set up spray and we'll be good. Of course, the other thing you can do is just put the tape right up to the edge, which is what I'm doing on this one, at least for most of it. I have less of that to do, but figured I would show you that cool little trick, because yeah, when I saw that I was like, yeah, that's dope. Can I try? No. Okay. Certain what's going on there. Oh, that's that. This is the one that has that little pocket right at the very end here, and the tape sitting in there funny. That's what's happening. Just try and get that as aesthetically pleasing as possible. Though it seems very small on a, like, you know, the tape line that we're kind of looking at. However, when you spray that and it becomes darker, which it inevitably will, that's going to be noticeable. And yeah, so there you go. So just even pulling the tape, it's just making it come right off. perfectly cleanly along that line. That's what I was trying to do the first time. All right, I think that is good to go. I'm just cleaning up this edge here as well. Same kind of thing. All right. So I'm just gonna clean this bench just because they're chilling here. I'm not spraying on this bench, but just because they're chilling here. Is that an annoying sound? I don't think I've actually done this on cam yet. Yep, one sec. It's just one of those things where I don't want to clean them and then there's remnants of whatever. Again, that's why I'm fortunate enough to have a couple benches, but this one stays clean. This one is like my final bench, and then behind me is where I make the mess. Okay, let's clean them, let that sit for a sec, and then we will set up the rest. This is again, this is just naphtha. We're just removing any oils. We've been holding it, taping it, all that kind of stuff, because I've seen, thankfully I've never done that. And truthfully, I've never done that. I have seen resprays, very expensive resprays, and they had fingerprints sitting in them. And of course that's now under whatever, 10, 12 coats of lacquer. Their customer. That's definitely not a client. That is a one-time customer. They were not happy. Unfortunately, it was a good friend of mine too. So that's funny. That's a funny thing. Just quickly, as I said that, I have a belief that there's a difference between a client and a customer. A customer is that person that comes in and, you know, and if we're talking a music store, comes in, buys a pack of strings, and you never see them again. A client is that one that comes in and is excited about talking about all their guitars, wanting to get all their stuff set up, constantly coming back. So that's what all of my strummers are. They're all clients, and I'm very happy to have every one of them, and I'm happy to have you. So that was pretty cliche, but it's the truth. It's cool. That's what we do here. All right, so those are clean. I'm just gonna give them a quick sec, and I'm going to probably have to take my headphones off, but yeah, I'm just gonna set up an airbrush and kind of show you all that. So I'm gonna flip over to the other camera and we'll get started. Okie dokie. Pardon the mess, but here we are. But hey, you can hear me now, so that's exciting. Okay, so all I'm doing here is I'm just kind of making space. And making room for everything. Just kind of removing any of that loose dust, at least as much as I can. If you haven't seen an airbrush setup, it's pretty straightforward. There's a little air pump, a little air compressor, so it's a much lower PSI. This one, I don't even know what this one goes up to. So it goes up to 100 PSI. Normally you're around 10, 15 PSI, so it's quite low. It's also quite quiet. Too many quiets. But when you're turning it on, barely makes a sound, which is cool. So for us, what we are doing is we are going to be spraying, we're going to do, what did I say? The red. Yeah, we're going to do the red first. As we are spraying that, we'll kind of multitask. So I have a feeling we're probably going to be doing the other guitar on this bench, or the ukulele. As I was saying, as these are spraying and kind of drying in between, we'll multitask. And that's normally actually how I work in here, which is great. So as something's sitting, drying, curing, doing whatever, I can jump on another one, or if I have something clamped and I'm gluing it, then I can do that accordingly as well. You got your hose, which goes in there. I was actually quite intimidated when I bought this because I didn't have any idea on how airbrushing works. You know, you see the people on, you know, cooking channels or tattoo artists and things like that where they're actually drawing and doing that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, that makes it look really easy. It can be, but yeah, once you kind of learn how, actually no, I'll use that one on the other one. But once you kind of learn how it works and responds, then you are really going to be okay. This was always the thing for me, was just kind of looking at all the mechanisms on it. So when you have the gun, you've got different spray angles, and like I said, I'm no expert, so I'm probably not the best one to be describing it, but this is the one that works for me. I don't even know what it is, but it's narrow. I don't know what the actual number is. This kit came with 3, but it's a smaller one. It's a small bowl that you're actually mixing up your paint, and then you can change your drawback and as well as your airflow. And then one for me was that you can actually get separate control of the two. So you can get how much of your spray is coming through, but then also how much air. So you can really control that. This wasn't expensive by any means. I don't think I justify spending that kind of money, at least yet. But when you get to the point of where you can actually reap the benefits and have a really nice gun, then great, go for it, because I'm imagining that probably helps. No different when you have a spray gun. I got a nice spray gun, an HVLP, when I'm doing like carpentry stuff or bigger paint jobs. So I just use a couple things when I'm spraying. I have this very technical drop cloth that I use. This tape's probably wearing out. Again, because we're airbrushing, it's a very low amount of spray. I'm not really too worried about it running away or getting over anything. There's no guitars in this vicinity, so that's the other thing. I wouldn't do this with another client's guitar hanging out over there, because then they probably just turned into a customer. See, we did that. We went full circle there. You're not getting covered in paint. It's not really something that you have to do. I only do it because I'm about to like pull out all the paints and the lacquer and stuff and mixing that, and they're just very leaky bottles, so. Or Oh, I forgot to grab black. Let's see what else I forgot. It's on the other side of the shop. So I'm just kind of cleaning my hands real quick, or my gloves real quick. Because again, that's the kind of stuff that's going to, let's do the worst one first. Because that's the kind of stuff that's going to get stuck, and then you're not going to have any success with that. A lot of times I just throw some hardboard underneath this. Like I said, it's very technical. There we go. And if I'm doing a bigger paint job, like a body or something like that, I don't do this in here. This is a very small amount. Gets controlled very quickly, so I'm not really too worried about any of the other components that go with spraying lacquer. All right, so we are going oh. I'm trying to remember. This is certainly not the first time I've done this repair. Obviously I have two of the exact same base as it is, but I think this is probably my 9th or 10th of like exactly the same break on exactly the same model. Don't put these in hard cases, put them in a soft bag. When you put them in a hard case, the angle just doesn't line up. So you think that it's nice and protected because it's in a hard case, and then you go to put it down or put it in the back of your car and throw something on top of it, and then you hear a crunch. What am I doing? Lacquer. I need to go grab lacquer. I got everything else I need, I think. So, one second. So it's not lacquer, it's actually shellac that I like to use. It works very well. It has a really nice shine to it. Again, it depends on what it is that you're trying to put it on. Because this guitar is so high gloss, I don't know if you can see it in this shot. Oh yeah, you can. You can see like just the solar flare that's going along this. If you have anything that's in there that's a really bright finish, the shellac works really well. It polishes quite nicely, comes to a really nice shine, so that's what I'm going to do. Set up a little. Where can you actually see this? Probably do it. See that? Well, what I might do is take a bit of a gamble. Go over here on the other side. Can you see it? It's kind of a tough angle. What I was trying to see is if I can show you basically how I kind of match this. Okay, so first steps first. just grab some shellac, spray it into my little mixing cup. And now I've got just a clear kind of shellac. Obviously, I don't think you're gonna really quite be able to see that, but it's just a clear shellac, and it's obviously moving and it gives me what I need. And so I like the color tone stuff. They're all really, to an extent, they all kind of work in the same fashion. A little bit goes an incredibly long way. So there's a little drop spout that's on here, and I think I do 2 drops of the red, and we'll see kind of what happens there. I think I might move to the end. Once I do the mixing here, I'll bring it over to the other desk just so we can get a better look at it. All right, so I'm just taking my red, 1, 2 little drops, and then I've got my popsicle stick here, and that's just mixing it all up. So this is actually a little light. It's not quite dark enough. So this is almost looking kind of like Kool-Aid right now. So yeah, let's switch back over here. One more drop of red. Yeah, it's still quite light, which actually I'm okay with. So a lot of times when I'm kind of like looking for that right color, or the right hue, sorry, I will actually kind of hold it up to the area. And yeah, it is light, but also keep in mind if we're going to be doing a couple different coats, it probably would be okay. Because obviously the more that we put on there, red, or sorry, it's quite light. I think what I might do, I don't want to go black. I think what I'm going to do is just do 1 drop of brown. There's 1 drop of brown. And that's quite a difference. Let's see if I can get this into a good view here. So you can see it's a much richer, well, maybe. It's a much richer color coming out of that. Yeah. And that's still a little light, but I am gonna go with that, I think. Because if I do a couple coats, it will dry a little bit. It will go light, but we'll do a couple coats. Actually, I might go 1 more. Let's go 1 more. So I'm gonna go 1 more drop of brown. There it is. Oh yeah, that is much closer. Let's go over here, show you what I'm doing. All right, there is that. We're good to go. And one last thing I'm gonna do is just using a tack cloth, and this is just gonna grab any little sticky spot that we have. If there's any sort of particles or dust or anything like that, it's just gonna grab it, which is great. So we did 3, and then I actually, before I forget, I'm gonna actually write that down because I may have to mix up another batch. So I'm just gonna say 3 red, 2 brown. The cool thing is I don't do enough of this yet that I kind of start writing this down. I'm probably going to start doing this, though. I think about this every time I do it. When I match a color, and I don't spray often. Like, it's not something that comes in once a week kind of thing. I get it every couple of months. And, oh yeah, that looks nice. I like that. If I were to be painting a lot, like frequently, I definitely, no doubt, would be doing that. But I think I might still record kind of my mixes, because then you also know where you've come from as far as like, oh, the last one dried really thin or dried really heavy. So I've got a full pot here, and we are going very, very light. I kind of have the camera back a little bit just so that the overspray doesn't go over the camera, so I apologize for that, but so the one thing that I have been told, and see if I can do it on this, is that when you're actually airbrushing, first of all, you've got 2 mechanisms that are happening. Oh yeah, cool, it's coming up the back, that's great. You've got 2 mechanisms on an airbrush. You've got the air, so we have a nozzle, I believe they call this a 2-way nozzle. So when you're actually pressing down, it's just air. There's no paint. You can hear the compressor kicks in, and it's just spraying air. And when you pull back on the trigger, now you are actually coming out with finish. And as you can see, oh yeah, you can see that. It is a very light misting that I'm actually doing, but it's a very controllable mix. So now when I come in here, actually, you know what? I think I can probably move you a little bit closer. So I break my knuckle. Oh, that was not a nice feeling. Move you in just a touch. Sorry for the audio shake. There you go. All right, cool. So now we just come in, and I use this hardboard just kind of as like a shield almost, so that it doesn't go everywhere. And now the trick to airbrushing is when you're passing strokes, you don't want to just hold spray and go back and forth. It's the same thing if you're using it out of a can, like if you're just kind of painting out of a can. But when you're doing any of this, you want to hold the air constantly and just bring back the paint. So as you're doing your stroke, you paint, let go, but keep the air. So when we're pressing down, on this, and then we'll hold back, get our finish. Actually, I'm gonna go a little bit heavier than that. And then you come back and you stop pulling back, and now it's just air that's coming out. And now when you come back, you're holding it. And now you're getting this really nice controlled stroke rather than this huge blotchy amount of air. So anyway, here's the first coat. So just like that, that is a really nice, first of all, it's a very nice match. It is a very, very nice match. We're gonna have to do a couple coats, obviously. I didn't want to cover it all in one coat. You go light and then I'll come back in about 10 minutes and we'll go the other way. And we just kind of keep crisscrossing that as you start building that finish up, which is, yeah, but I'm very happy with how well that matches. And I'll give it, actually I'll bring this over to the other camera here, because I want to prep the other one. We'll just kind of keep going back and forth here, I think. We don't have this huge shadow or anything like that coming in here. And as we kind of start to build this back up, you'll see it. And if you can see, I'm trying to see if I can find the shine. Yeah, there you go. So you can see the shine of where the end of the airbrushing comes in, right at the very end here, just at the end of the tuning holes. And it's at the beginning part, right along this edge. So we can really control it where we want it to stop. And this is the reason why I like to do it kind of freehand, if you will, rather than put a tape line and come and create a really hard stop. I'm really digging the results I'm having with just kind of letting it and trusting the resources. So, and this is the bad one. This is the one that has all the paint missing on the sides. And as you can see from the first really light coat, it is a nice coverage. And you can see just where the shine kind of changes right up here. That's just a kind of a sticky shellac. So as we build this up a little bit, that will start to fade away. Yeah, that's a really nice match. I like that match. And then we will have the ability of kind of hiding this. So on the next one, we'll come the other way. And yeah, we just start building that all the way and we keep going. So I'm just gonna put this one here, hanging off the edge so nothing comes close to it. And we'll throw the other one in, and just for kind of a comparison, this one is the nicer one of the two in the sense of it doesn't have a lot of paint missing. So there is this little section in here, obviously, but as you can see, this is also, this one is in nice shape already. So this should come out really, really nice. So let's throw it back over and we'll put it on the bench. So I always enjoy doing these jobs. It's obviously a little bit more enjoyable when you're starting to get results with them. So like I said, I've done a handful of these. I'm by no means claiming I'm an expert, but when you have just kind of, here's what I need to do, and then you can go and actually get to it and do it, that is an awesome feeling. So that's kind of where I'm at with that finish, going, wow, that's a really close match. So is that one? Yeah, so you can kind of see the shine that's on there. You can see this section right here is what we're painting. I'm just going to do the same thing. So I always kind of start my brush off just in case anything's blotchy. It's not, which is nice. But if you had any kind of spatter, I want to do that off of the guitar. That's the other reason why I have paper here, so that I can just kind of make sure that my strokes are nice and clean. And then I can just kind of come back. It's not even overspraying. I normally use this as kind of like a shield to kind of keep it in, but it's not bothering me at all. So. You know what, let's see if I can get a shot of this coming, because this is where you notice it. And this one I'm not too worried about as far as it not applying or anything, so bear with me for a quick sec. Where are we? There we are. So we started to do this side. That was what I just sprayed. So now I'll come back up. Holy. So I don't know if you can hear that air, that hiss of the air, but that never stops. You never want that to stop. And that is just keeping air moving through the gun. But for the first round on each of them, I am quite happy. So like I said, I'll probably do that maybe 3 or 4 times. And honestly, in this section here, sorry, my monitor's behind me. In this section right in here, you can see that the crack has actually already disappeared. So obviously this big section is, so that is really, really nice. So if we do this a handful of times without going too heavy, we've done a really nice job of matching this color so that we're not going to notice it. Again, this hard line is already the color finish, and I'm not 100% sure why that is, because it doesn't do it along the neck. You can see all the grain in here, and then all of a sudden it just goes super hard, and then it's light again on the headstock. But that's every single one of these, they do that. But in any case, there's that one. And there's the second one. So obviously we have a little bit more work to do on this one. This one might be a little tricky to kind of cover that up entirely, but we'll keep going on it. If this has to become a little bit heavier, a little bit darker of a color, I'm not too upset about it. So we'll just see. And then eventually we'll just draw a line going like, yeah, you know what? It's not going to get any better than that. Again, first of all, these are necks that are back together. So we're already going in the right direction, but we'll kind of play with this one and see what happens. So I'm gonna let that sit for about 10 minutes, if even that. I normally let it sit for about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll do another coat. So just have to remember which one's which. So actually, you know what? I'm even gonna go crazy and name this one A. And I'm just gonna put them right over here. And that way I'm just making sure that my schedules kind of stay. So this one I waited 10 minutes, and then after I spray that one, I'll go to the next one. And now this is just a recycling procedure until we're kind of happy with it. This, as you saw, we're not really applying a whole heck of a lot, so I don't have any problems spraying, 4 or 5 coats really, really lightly like that. That's about where I would kind of draw the line. So it's there. This is A. And then after that is when you start to kind of look at it and go, that might not be, we might not be getting any further ahead anymore. So as that sits for a minute, so yeah, we're quarter after here. So we'll let that sit for a couple minutes, and we will then jump onto it. So actually I should have thought this through. I say that because the ukulele that we are now going to look at is covered in dust. So I don't want to be kicking up that dust over my nice clean finish. So I'll clean this up over here. I'm just wiping the dust off. I'm not really making it active, so to speak. Okay, so on this one, I'm not 100% sure what's going on. So obviously the issue that we're having is that it's nice and cracked and split open, and you can see it on either side. So we've got, yeah, the whole top and bottom are basically splitting apart on us. So there's that. So the whole top and the whole bottom. Let me just turn this off real quick. Does that help? Oh, sure doesn't. I tried. So yeah, we've got, that's all loose too. And so that also means that the edging in here is also bulging out. So if we come at it from, I don't know why I got that angle this way. Oh, actually, it's not too bad. I'm just trying to see if this is like puffing out. But yeah, it's not, there is a little bit, but it's not too bad. So in this case, I always look at the assessments on these and kind of suss what's happening. I think what we're gonna do is just take this all apart, first of all. And when I'm doing these jobs, I'm always kind of estimating as we move along, trying to see if there's going to be some sort of issue. Along, other than obviously what's quite noticeable. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the time as we keep going through all of this. So yeah, it's been a couple of minutes. So I like to normally let the lacquer sit for probably, like I said, about 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes, kind of at a max. We're probably getting pretty close to that. So what we'll do is we'll just take the strings off, and then we'll jump back over and spray another coat. And then this is the shuffling game that you're doing. So, but I like it. Keeps me active. Lets me get my steps in. All 2 of them. I actually have a little bit of a kind of a running joke with ukuleles, is that I don't accept them. This is a friend that he turned into a really good friend, a really good client in the store that I worked at before I went out on my own. So I'm kind of helping him out, but normally when the phone rings and someone says, "Oh, I have a ukulele," I hang up. I don't know what it is about them. I don't know. Obviously, I'll fix them. I'm half joking, but at the same part, it's just like you can't get into them. Oh, cool! I got a crack. Let me just get my hand. Oh wait, I can't get my hand in there. So now I either have to employ my children, or I have to come up with a little bit more of a creative way of being able to clamp it. So that's where that kind of just becomes annoying. That's really all it is. At the end of the day, it's still the same kind of build as your typical acoustic guitar. So you know, that doesn't change. But so there you go. Taking the tension off of the which way did you go? You went this way. So what I do on saddles, just as a side note, as a little tech tip. Oh no, it goes this way. When you have a removable saddle, so the saddle will actually pop out, I actually just grab like a little pencil and I just put a little B and a little T on it. For bass and treble, obviously. But that way, when I'm trying to put it back together, I know which way it goes. It's a very common, actually, you'd be surprised on how often I see that as an issue. It's the same thing with the nut. Nut's pretty difficult to put on backwards, but on some guitars you'll actually see that the nut, actually this one's loose too, as I say that. There is a belief that we don't want to glue any of that to the guitar. I will stay off my soapbox on that one. But as far as the kind of the conversation goes, it just is allowing us to just know which way it came off the guitar. That's really all it is. Whichever decision that you make. All right, so we're probably just about able to get in there, but we've been sitting for 5 minutes, so let's go do another coat. So on the last coat, we went with the grain. So now on this one, we're gonna go against the grain. And the object of this is basically just kind of filling in all these little crevices. I can see that we still have a noticeable crack. So this crack that I've been talking about for the last, I don't know, 3 sessions, going like, I don't know, I don't think that should bother me. It's gonna bother me. So, but we'll just do another quick coat on this. Actually, I'm going to put this one in just because this one's a little bit bigger. Meaning I'm just going to put it in the vise here. So there is coat 2. And you can see how it goes on kind of wet. You can see, really, that's the best description I have. You can see that it just looks wet. Obviously it's wet lacquer, but it's a great way of kind of seeing if you have that coverage that's on there. Yeah, we're getting color. We're getting close to actually starting to mask that, which is nice. So once we get to that, 4 or 5 coat thing, we're going to be in a good spot. That one, we'll have to take a look and see what happens at that point. Whether we are going to do another pot of red, or perhaps we go with a really light brown just to kind of cover that up a little bit. Kind of play it by ear. So I was just taking a quick peek at the pot. So it looks like we probably have enough to do another coat for each of these. So we're going to be 3 coats deep, and then we'll come up with another game plan. So whether we just mix another pot of the same color, this one, that's definitely working. That one we may go a little bit darker, but at the same time, if we have to keep spraying this, I don't want to have two different mixes. So we'll see. So we'll give that a couple minutes and we'll go back to the ukulele. So I'm just gonna put the headphones on just for a sec. Yeah, we're almost already at that 2-hour platform. Holy. Time flies when you're having fun. I truly do enjoy what I do. I never really thought I was going to get into this, but I'm going to save that story. But it's one of those kind of, as the years go by as a session musician and so forth, you kind of go, oh, okay. I have no idea on how to fix a guitar. Even doing my own setups wasn't a thing that I did. Oh boy. I don't know about this. Yikes. Okay, so what I was saying just before we kind of flipped back over and sprayed there, as I took the string tension off, this section right here popped out. And when that happened, you can see this laminate, or you can't quite see the laminate, but there is a laminate part that's poking out here, this little hiccup right here. It is a separated piece of plywood. That's just my compressor. It's gonna do that off and on. And I was just kind of pressing on it, trying to see if I can get some movement on that, and it just started to crack on me. I can hear it. Actually, let's see if we can hear that. That's a terrifying sound. Just the sound of the wood saying please stop. It's a good barometer though, because that's what's going to give you a good notice when you're applying too much pressure. So the wood will actually say, you know, it starts cracking, and you can feel it. Obviously you're pressing too hard, but it's a really good way of kind of knowing when enough's enough. So the bottom part actually is lining up quite nicely, so I'm kind of squeezing all this together. I have a little bit of a lip where I'm feeling the bottom, which means that the sides have actually sucked in a little bit, which is quite yeah, it's not uncommon for that to happen. So I'm just going to take the output jack out. This has got a pickup in it, which I actually installed quite some time ago. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually like a handmade guitar, which is also, or a ukulele, which is also sometimes the thing that scares me. Just because you don't always know how it's built. Not that you know how manufacturing stuff is built, but... Okay. Just gonna take this saddle out. Yeah, without applying too much pressure, I don't want to be doing that, so I'm gonna grab my hammer. All I'm actually doing is using it as like I'm just pressing with it, I'm not actually even hammering it. Yeah, it's not working. Holy. That is quite annoying. Okay, so let me just, oh yeah, there we go. recall. I remember doing this, but it was a long time ago. Just throwing an Allen key. In the there's little holes that go through this pickup, through the output jack. This is also a great way if you have a loose one on your guitar. This is a great way to kind of do this little fix. But all I'm doing is I'm just kind of using this as like a handle. See if I can get some movement. I've already, well, they came out in the flood. This was involved in the flood, and with that, the water has removed all of the wiring from sticking on the body. So this will just kind of keep spinning on us, which is kind of what we want, sort of within reason. I can see it bunching up inside there, but that's okay. You can see that also that the hole is getting closer to the body, which is also what we want. Yeah, so that's threading in there. Okay. Yeah, I can hear the threads ripping. The threads ripping being that of the fibers in the wood. Go back to the hammer, see if we can just press that in. There it is. So yeah, it certainly has seized. Like seriously. I'd like to meet the person who first built a ukulele. Obviously they wouldn't have had electronics and stuff in them, but the other thing that I'm kind of curious on is the nice thing about the compressor, though, it keeps reminding me that I'm doing something else, because yeah, we'll go in just a second here. What was I just saying? Oh, the other thing about taking this out is that I can see it is just, it's white, as in corrosion. So it's filled with water. Like the whole case was filled with water. The case is damaged. So it's kind of one of those like, I hope you can do something with it. And sometimes I just can't. So, but the first thing that we had to do is let that sit for sure, because there's no way I would have been able to do that as it sponges. We can soften wood again. Basically, is kind of doing the opposite of a flood. So you get it wet, kind of heat it up, and you're steaming it. So we can get some elasticity out of this tiny little section. I'm not going to do that if the rest of the uke is having issues. So I'm just going to pull the saddle out. This is an under saddle pickup. And that's stuck to the inside here, yeah. So I'm going to leave that. That's okay. I'll pull that off. Actually, do I have a cloth handy? I know, tissue will work. Just to wrap it up so I don't have any damage along the edges here. So the other nice thing about that is if you have never seen the inside, I'm not going to be able to do it with such a small body, but if you've never seen the inside of an acoustic guitar, basically where the two edges meet on this, I can do it on this one. So in this case, we've got this the skunk stripe in the center, but where this ends, there's a flap that I can catch on either side. There's actually a tail block in here. So there's a big block of wood that's actually holding this all together. And that is loose. Like it's all come loose. So what I'm probably better off to do is just break all of these glue joints and kind of realign it. Ugh, it's not really something I wanted to do. Oh yeah, the top is, yeah, so the top is lifting right up off of this. So you can see this little section right in here that's kind of caught. Django, yeah, that's a lock washer that's rolling around in there. But so when I'm looking at stuff like this, so right now I'm kind of in the assessment stage. It is one of those like, it's one of those things where you need to kind of see where you can get that flexibility. So for example, I don't know if I can get that angle correct, but when I start squeezing this, the sides, so I'm just putting the pressure on the actual sides, it actually comes parallel to the end of the uke again. So that's telling me that it probably will get pretty dang close of coming back together. This little hiccup on the side is really the only thing that's a dramatic moment. The other thing that's happened too is, yeah, it looks like a koa. I don't know if you can see this in the finish. No, you can't really. It's too shiny. But there's a lot of stress cracks, and that's just because the wood's twisted and manipulated so much. So it's definitely, and all along the sides it's done that as well. So I was really good at Barrel of Monkeys and Operation. That's a fun game. Also, having magnetized screwdrivers can sometimes help you. Not all the time. Sometimes I say quick curse words because they're magnetized, but in that case, I just picked up those washers. So yeah, what we're gonna do is basically just kind of grab a spatula, break off these glue joints, and hopefully the tail block kind of hangs out, because that's gonna be a thing. So let's go back and go spray. We'll do another coat, and we'll come back to this. Yeah, that sounds good. Yep. Okay, so we're gonna switch these out because this is the second one. Generally speaking, these actually look really, they look good. I'm not, as far as fully covering it, obviously that's a much different thing, but so yeah, we got a little bit of spatter there, and that's just because it's been sitting. That's the other reason why I like to do this for about 5 minutes or so, because then the gun doesn't sit. So there we go. So now we got paint coming out. So now we're gonna go back with the grain. So I just kind of keep going, crisscrossing, and the idea is that you're kind of filling in the voids and the angles. So we'll just do another round here. Problem, if you want to call it that, is that the color match, I'm really happy with the color match. It looks really good. It might look a little dark, but it lightens up. So because it's wet, because we just kind of keep adding to it, but once we kind of start letting gas off, it will actually thin itself out, and it won't be quite as noticeable, but you're mostly looking at the, I guess, the wet level. As far as the finish that's on there, yeah. Quite happy with that. this one. This one is coming together quite nicely. So because our two colors are a little bit different, this one is matching quite nicely. This one has covered up about 80% of the crack. We have just the odd couple highlights. The reason why I went a little bit more is kind of doing what we've been doing on a bigger angle, but also because my pot, I know in the airbrush is about to be empty. So trying to cover this as much as I can with a really nice blend. So that color has worked very, very well with this finish. So I just kind of keep using it in there, and that allowing me to kind of use the right mix, so forth. The other one, I think we might go, I don't really want to though, to be honest, is because it is covering nicely. I can just do more coats, but I might do a touch darker. So I think we did 3 and 2. So 3 red drops and 2 brown drops. I might do 3 and 3 and just give us a little bit darker to give us a little bit more coverage on the other one. Just because when we're actually looking at that, again, you can't quite see it in this angle. Oh yeah, maybe you can. So you're still kind of seeing, well, maybe on screen, but you definitely can still see that crack. The angle is, the sides are starting to come together, but the back is, so this one I might go a little bit darker just to kind of give us a little bit more coverage, which will kind of help fill that in. This one I'm still on the fence about because I'm really happy with how that looks. How much paint do we have left here? Oh, we got a little bit more. I'm gonna let this sit for a minute, I think, and then we'll do this one again, and then we'll go a little bit heavier into the other one. I think that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. All right, ukulele. Oh my gosh. Actually, you know what? Let me turn that off. It doesn't harm anything if it is actually on, so, or if it's off, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay. So yeah, with the exception of this one little hiccup. Well, not the only hiccup, but it's the only thing that is probably going to hinder us from having an absolute clean glue up. But yeah, I can see that this has totally come off. This is the other cool thing is, as far as my job goes, is because I get all these cool little tools. So it's like a little mirror on a gooseneck. You can kind of come in here. Actually, the battery died in here, but there are lights in here as well, which is really nice when you're kind of poking around inside. Just haven't changed the batteries. I do have this big AAS light. I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to get a camera in there. Be nice if I could, though. I'm going to try. We'll try. Okay, so first of all, line this up. See if I can line you up in the mirror. I won't try for long, I promise. It's the angles that are really throwing me off, because everything's reversed. So you can see the light actually going right through the bottom of that. There you go. So you can see that huge light source. That's me holding the light. So there's a very, very small... Side note, I am actually, I've got one on order. It's super back ordered, but it's, I can't think what they're called. I want to say stethoscope, but that's not correct. It's the really small camera that comes on a gooseneck that you would use for like seeing if you have clogs in your plumbing or whatever, but that I'm going to use for guitar repair. So see if I can make that come into the stream. That would be kind of cool. But anyway, what was my train of thought? Squirrel. Yeah, so there's just one little section of this entire top from here all the way. Where are we going to? Oh, there. Yeah, to right about here. So this whole section, there's like one little hiccup, and that's also why it did this. So we have this kind of like ripple in the center, is because that one part was the only part that held on, and the rest of it just let go. So, and also the instrument was under full tension when it all started to go. So yeah, they don't like when that happens. Also, this is the reason why I wear gloves. I've got like red on me. Looks like I'm bleeding, but it's not. It's the red from the paint. So now that, of course, upsets me. All right, so I'm gonna try going cold, meaning that I'm not using any heat. Normally when I'm doing any of this kind of stuff, I am using a heat source, whether that's like a heating blanket or a heat gun. Heat guns you gotta be really careful of, because if you go too much, you could obviously burn right through it, or you can make that part ripple, or the lacquer crack. There's all sorts of things that can happen. So in any case, I didn't need to do that because it just came loose. So I just went in cold, and it just kind of cracked apart, which is, I'm not going to say ideal, but I didn't have to try hard to make it broken. Yeah, so there's nothing holding that together. And we're not at the full part. There's almost a part when I do these types of repairs, like if it goes the whole way, you're almost within like thinking of, and this much damage, like all the sides and stuff, rather than fighting with it and trying to manipulate and come up with some sort of call, which I'm almost inevitably going to have to make this all glue up. Is there another option? Then I just take the top off and make all the repairs and then put the top back on, because sometimes that's the easier way. But This is, I mean, now it's bending, so that's neat. But I don't think this is going, oh yeah, it is. It just needs a lot of love. It needs a lot of love to get there. There is actually I don't know if that's a section of wood missing or if that's just that much movement, but that does not line up anymore. As I'm kind of like clamping this all back together, there's a huge gap, and with all of my force, that's not going together, so maybe I have to loosen the bottom as well. I can see the glue is just crystallized on the inside here. It's not, and that's kind of part of the build to an extent, like the build quality, but also, of course, the damage that we're dealing with. Sorry, I don't have the best viewing angles of this at the moment. I'm just trying to see what I can see. Okay, so this piece is in this. I'm gonna call it a skunk stripe, but this little inlay on the inside, this is connected to the block, and the block does have some adhesion to this side. This side is totally loose, like almost more than half of it. So now what I'm going to try and do, also keeping an eye on my pot of paint that's behind me. See if I can break the back or the bottom cold too. Kind of getting in. So all I'm kind of doing when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I do this often with cracks and breaks and orchestral. Actually, the glue that they use on like cellos and violins when you're doing top repair actually is a hide glue, which you can just snap it. So you don't have to actually use heat. You can just snap it cold. And then when you start to feel a resistance, pull back, come at it from a different angle, and then eventually it'll just kind of weaken and you'll make your way right through. Oh yeah. And the only reason why I'm doing this actually is pretty solid, but the only reason why I'm doing this is because I need to realign that whole back part. I don't want to take all this out, I just want to do this back part. And then this will be a mess, but it will come together, I think, a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier than anything there. So, all right, so we're gonna go spray again. So let's use the rest of that pot on the one jack and then see what happens. Right, okay, let's go do that. Disgusting. pressure on. Holy moly. All right, so the pot is empty. Okay, so there we got a little spray happy. My technical exhaust fan. It's a very light mist. It's like I barely have any paint coming out, so. Okay, so there is that. So that's kind of the worst of them. And yeah, we still got a little ways to go here, but it is looking good. We're on the right path. This one looks very good. So like we're not even seeing a finish difference here. Meaning that you're not really seeing that there's been another coat sprayed, which is kind of ideal. Like even in this angle, we're not really seeing a difference. That is very, very cool. Yeah, so you can see that we still have just that one ever so slight section. Where is it? Right here. So we have that one little section. But the rest of that is basically covered. All right, this is where it gets fun. So now the next option. Because we could do the same color, mix it up, and just do another coat to that. The other one is going to have to go a little bit heavier, so perhaps we go a little bit heavier and just spray very lightly on this one. It's also an option. This one is so flippin' close. That's why I don't really want to go away from that on this guy. It's just that one little tiny lip that's really noticeable now. Like you wouldn't, if you got handed this, there's no way you would know that. And when we're all done too, because obviously the polishing, buffing, all that kind of stuff, then this will all blend. It will all look the same as far as the finish and the sheen. So, and that was another thing too, if you're noticing, it doesn't really look all too, I guess sticky is the best way of saying it. So we have where it's been sprayed, it doesn't look substantially different there. You are still getting the light reflections and stuff, which is another reason why the shellac is nice, is because it still has that high density glare to it. So yeah. So the red is a little bit trickier to put on than the black. The black's pretty straightforward because we're just kind of doing a high gloss black and you're just kind of covering it up. But yeah, the red's taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, as it always seems to. No, I've made my mind up. We just had to talk it through. We just had to make our way through it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up another batch of what we just sprayed. The good one is very close, so I'm calling it the good one. It is very close that we can cover that up. The one that has a little bit more work to do, I think if we do enough coats, it will kind of go well. Also within reason, I don't want to be spraying, 27 coats of color on top of that, because again, that will be a noticeable transition. So I might do a couple more. I'll do a little bit less of a full pot than what I did on that one, or my first one. And then that gives me a bit of a barometer, because I might have to spray the two of those and then let that sit overnight and then kind of come clean it up in the morning. Or I might just spray the black in the morning. I'm not too sure. We'll figure it out. We still got a little bit more time here, but. So I'm gonna put my gloves on because this stuff gets sticky. Oh. So the only problem with working late, like I am a night owl and I don't have any problems doing this, but it's when you're like having to make decisions, which is where it gets a little dicey. You're like, oh, I don't want to, I'll just do it in the morning. But my morning tomorrow is picking up an insane amount of, well, it reminds me I need to send a quick email. I might have to take just a minute break here in a sec. So we'll just spray a little bit in here. We won't go quite as heavy as we did on the first one. That's good. The cool thing is regardless of how much shellac you use, the ratio is still the same. So we had 3 red and 2 brown. 1, 2, 3, and then brown is 2. 1, 2. All right. That's the soundboard I need. Just Matthew McConaughey, just. And Owen Wilson. Wow. Because who doesn't need that in their life? And just to compare, yeah, it's the same. It's the same color. It's actually a little bit darker because there is a little bit less shellac in there. Not substantially, but which actually will work in our favor. So I'm okay with that. Okay, mixing that up, and then we'll pour this into the pot. Kaul. It's just a little under half a pot, so that should probably give us what we need. Okay, we'll do another coat on these guys. This one so close. And it's really important to, again, patience is a big word. I say that in the sense of, because this is so close, what we probably want to do is just hold the paint or hold the gun and just cover that up and be good with it. But don't do that, because now you're going to have this big blotchy spot in the middle of that. So keep with your system and just know that you're really close, that you don't maybe have to go so slow. You can go a little bit quicker, which in theory, well, not in theory, which is going to in turn give you a lighter misting up top. But yeah, that is very, very close. And we're still not a huge color difference less than where it was, which is what the really cool thing is. So again, for me, the learning experience behind that is going like, hey, I'm actually pretty dang close to that. Which is obviously a nice win. When you're doing that on a really expensive guitar, you want to make sure you have the confidence in being able to do that, right? So we'll give that a couple more minutes. I'm almost at the point of getting ready to give up on this ukulele. Because sometimes it's just not worth your time. And that's kind of going back to my comment on ukuleles, where I'm like, I don't care. Here you go. I couldn't fix it. Oh, there we go. That's what I needed. I heard that. Don't give up on me, coach. So again, I'm kind of going in cold. I'm just trying to break this all up. Actually, it's not you kind of see what I'm doing there. we definitely have some. Oh yeah. 11. So probably I'm gonna give that a couple more minutes. I'll probably give that to just about 20 after, and then we'll go take a look. All right. And so that's when that kind of stuff starts to happen. So I just, you see that? You can kind of see this razor little crack right there. That's the issue when you start forcing it, when it starts to get, like when they're, I call it a cold joint. So meaning that it's not hot. When you start heating it up, the glue will separate pretty quickly. This section is pretty nasty because it didn't break cleanly, and basically the two sides that are supposed to go around kind of did this, and so now it doesn't line up at the back. It's kind of ugly. So I need to break that all up, realign the middle part. So I need to basically take the top and bottom off of this, and then once I do that, once these two ends come off, then I can realign the sides to the block and get that nice and straight, and then I can put the top and bottom back on. That's kind of the way I'm looking at that. And also, yeah, the other thing that happened too is that the backside kind of kicked out. So on the top, it just separated. It just came loose. On the bottom, it looks like it was glued, and then this piece, the sides, actually caved in. So on the bottom, or sorry, on the top of the uke, it just separated from the top. It just lifted straight up, so that it's easy. You put it back down. On the bottom side of the ukulele, it separated kinda, and because the top had given away entirely, there was no strength from the other side, and also that would check out because you would have all the string tension up here. So because these were still on string tension, pulling all of that back, when this gave out, it just basically curled the wood. And because it's wet, it's very malleable. You can bend it, you can do all that kind of stuff. That's why when you're making acoustic guitars, you get the wood wet, steam it, because you have that flexibility. And that's basically what we're looking at now, is the aftermath of all of that. So we kind of need to recreate that. So that's why I'm trying to break all this up. I'm not, you know, with you know, I said, oh shoot, I cracked it. I did, but at the same time, it's broken. So it's something about the omelet. There we go. Very satisfying crack and pull, but yeah, so now I can get everything right through. So now this is all separated entirely. Yikes, those are not straight cuts. Which is also a thing. I'm actually gonna, nah, it doesn't matter. I was gonna say, I'm gonna grab the case real quick and see if there's any fibers in there, because there is definitely some wood missing here. But I don't think I'm gonna worry about that. Yeah, okay, well, we're at the point now where you're kind of ready for the next step, because the top I can lift right up, as you can see. I can fit everything in here. So that's that. And on the bottom side, we're kind of in the same thing, but yeah, I'm gonna have to probably create custom cull inside, because I don't think I'm gonna be able to clamp this all together. A lot of times what I actually do is I'll use a trigger clamp on the sides, like when I'm doing a bigger acoustic guitar. I'll actually clamp the sides, and when you know, I'm not going hard, but when I have a little bit of pressure, it actually starts to balloon the backside because you're squeezing it, and it just kind of forces all this wood out. And normally that gives you just enough so that when you're kind of ballooning that out, you can put the top and bottom, and then you can kind of line it up. And then you use spool clamps, which are basically just a little knuckle, essentially, and a twist part. And you're just kind of squeezing it all together. And I've got, I don't know, a handful of them, a dozen or so. And then you have the ability of just kind of switching that all out and giving you the strength that you're looking at. But let's go back and spray the other guitar for the uke right now. I'm just going to think of a game plan as we move to the back. So let's check that out. All right. So we're basically there with this coat. I think we're gonna go one more, we'll go across the grain, and that's gonna cover that up. It's a substantial difference from where it was an hour ago. So as we're, compressor. So yeah, I think this one is going to end up being a bit of a darker spray, just to give us a little bit more coverage on there. So I'm okay with that. It'll just be a bit of a stinger. But let's go to the other headstock here. And this one I think we're there on this. Yeah. So it's just, again, it's just this little piece that's sticking out, and it's ever so slightly. And it's one of those things where you kind of have to look at it at the right angle. Again, I relate that to that dot on your shirt. How did that get there? Alright, so let's just go back across it here. Yeah, so, you seen that? Let's go this way. So considering not too long ago, this was very noticeable. I think I'm there. Because again, it gets to one of those things where the other one is going to start to do that, but if we start to go too dark here, now we have this very contrasty difference. And again, this hue that's on the back of the headstock is actually a manufacturer's thing. So at the right angle, I mean, you can barely see that at the right angle, and I'm looking directly at it, wanting to look at it. So, which is cool, because now when you do the black, what I might actually do for both of these now is when we do the black in this part to fix the top part of the paint, I think we might be able to just kind of do a light misting on the back, and that would kind of give us just a little bit of a depth coverage on there, I think is maybe the way I would look at that. Yeah, just taking that to the brighter lights, because this is really the only part. The rest of this is not showing up at all in any form of really kind of bright. Actually, where did my light go? Try this light. So we're not seeing really any form of lacquer. Of course, that's making the camera go crazy, but I'm just trying to see if, because daylight is a great time to be painting, obviously, because then you can see the right angle and stuff, but that is good. And then we'll kind of do the other one now. This one's sitting a little bit. I feel like I'm going cross-eyed looking at the same repair on two different, on exactly the same guitar, but. So that one obviously is quite a bit more noticeable still. Actually, on camera it doesn't really look too bad, but it's certainly noticeable. It's still there, and there is still a little bit of a divot here where these two meet up. Yeah, even as it is, I just sprayed it and it's dry already, so just a little remnant in there. Let's try this one again. And again, kind of a cool thing about not painting or not taping this off is, I don't know if you actually saw the spray coming out, but I kind of feathered this just a little bit further up, just to kind of cover this huge transition. Even though it's a manufacturer's thing, I'm just kind of spreading it out a little bit. And hopefully that's going to give us just a little bit more width on it, that it kind of draws your eyes away from this crack, obviously. So, but we still have a little ways to go before it becomes too dark, in the sense of that it becomes very noticeable. Sometimes what I actually do is I'll, when I'm doing this and it becomes darker, I'll actually go a little bit darker along the edges, as I kind of started to do up here. And again, it just kind of draws the eye away from this section, or what you're trying to cover, or what you're trying to mask. So this one actually is starting to come together. It's noticeable, but it's starting to come together. I'm still a little hesitant to throw a darker color, because we found a really nice match as far as the mixture that we've done to get the right hue. I don't know if that's really showing up on your end, if you can see that or not, but. Kind of seeing the two here. So the funny thing is that if these were ever sold or put side by side, you wouldn't know that they were broken because they will each have the same similar paint structure, but. Yeah, so again, we'll give that just a minute or two, and then we'll maybe attack it again and see what we can get. So the pot's empty now, actually. I don't think I have anything even left in it. Alright, more than I thought. I'll just hit this section. There it is, right there. Thankfully I got a nice cover job, but... And again, keeping that air going and then just a light mist over it and it kind of just feathers each way. You're really getting it. I think I'm gonna call this one. I think I'm happy with that because this will start to dry. It will start to get a little bit, when it starts to dry and cure, it will actually become a little bit darker. And then when we start lacquering that out, you're gonna miss it entirely because it's gonna come up to this high gloss. So I normally let this sit overnight. Again, because we're going such light coats, it doesn't take very long to cure. Normally when I'm doing any sort of finish work, I'll let it sit for maybe a day and just kind of gas off and get any of that stuff out before I start to seal it. But because these are such light coats, it normally will dry in a couple of minutes. So if I leave it overnight, I can probably just start spraying lacquer on this tomorrow. But of course we have to do the black. But because of how much I've sprayed on this, I think I'm gonna wait. I don't know if I'm gonna get to the black tonight. Because they both need to do that. Yeah, we'll see. We'll give it like 5 minutes and we'll see. Because this one is gonna need a little bit more still. Again, I don't know if you can see that, the separation line. Progress. All right, let's go back here. Or did the button, sorry. So as the paint is doing its thing, we're kind of multitasking here, seeing what we can get accomplished on the back and sides here. The crackling of wood is such a satisfying sound. But the nice thing is though, is now that we've broken all of this, I keep forgetting to turn that off. So this ukulele coming out of a flood has got a lot of warped and twisted wood. So breaking off these sections of where that one little piece has actually kind of stuck together is certainly a little terrifying to see, and the same thing on the back side. But now that we've released basically from about here to about here, so that's actually a pretty good distance. This whole back piece has actually been released on both sides. But now what you can do is you can start actually manipulating it. So we can start adding some pressure to it, and it is certainly moving. It's only this top piece, but that's actually the area that's out the most. when this comes gluing back together. But when I'm squeezing this whole backside is ballooning right out, which is, again, what we want, because this actually sunk in quite a bit. So what happened is the water soaked in, it ballooned, and then because the string tension was on there, it just pulled and twisted that all over the place. And now we have to kind of fill it in. The only thing I'm not 100% sure exactly on how we're gonna fix is this little balloon of basically laminate. Like I can actually fit my blade in there. And this is a laminate side that is right there. So that's the only kind of part that I'm not 100% sure exactly how we're gonna fix, because that's a good bubble. I don't want to heat gun it. I might be able to just throw some water and a heating blanket on that, and it would probably loosen. The wood is very thin there. It's separated in the fibers when that originally happened. So because there isn't a lot of wood there, I think we might succeed by getting it wet, steaming it, and then it becomes malleable. And then we can kind of manipulate it to where we want it to go. I think we just try it. Let's get some water and my heating blanket. Oh geez. And we'll see if we can actually make something happen with this. Just because, yeah, when the problem with these is that it's a heating blanket, which is great, but the problem with them is that it's literally an element connected to an outlet jack. So it's very quick, and you have to really be on top of it. It's not one of those things where you turn it on, go get a coffee or whatever, because you'll come back and there'll be a big giant hole in the side of your instrument. Ask me how I know. The first time I used this, it was on a scratch guitar that was going in the garbage, so it wasn't a woe was me, but that was the whole reason why I wanted to do that. Especially when it showed up in the box and it just had bare wire and a power plug. Kind of scared me. But yeah, let's actually get it wet first before we plug this in, because it's immediate. And I just have no sink down here, so this is just water. And all I'm gonna do is just get it wet. I'm just gonna be pretty aggressive with it, actually. Of course, the lacquer is doing a wonderful job of dispersing water everywhere. Yep. Do that a couple more times. I'm gonna try and actually squirt it right in there rather than anything. I'm not trying to glue it at this particular moment. I'm trying to get some moisture in there. There we go. And it's already starting to move. So when there's enough water in there, then we'll put the heating blanket on there and we're gonna try and steam it out. I think that's gonna be my best plan. Because it's an angled, I have an iron that I use and stuff, but because I don't have a flat spot to put it on, that's gonna be useless. And then also with like a heat gun or something, it's too direct, too quick. I don't think I wanna do that. So we'll try the heating blanket. It might end up actually going to the, now that I think about it, it actually might be the heat gun. But we'll try this real quick and see what happens. One of those you can kind of get a sense for the wood, but yeah, the water in there is certainly doing the trick. And then also as this carries on, I'm kind of watching the clock to go back and see the spray on the other bench to see where we're at on that. All right, so let's just throw a little bit of heat on here and see what happens. What do you think? What do you think is gonna happen? I don't know. My hands are wet, so I'm gonna dry them quick before I start plugging into elements, but. I think we're gonna have, I think we're gonna have a bit of a bubble here. So it's almost immediate before, it's almost immediate that you're gonna start to sense the heat. Like I can feel it already, the heat coming off of this thing, but also before it starts to do anything, before it actually starts to activate the wood. What I'm trying to accomplish is to just heat up the water and it kind of starts to steam inside of that. That's really what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm not gonna put it directly in water, that's interesting. I'll also take heating up the glue too. If we end up doing that, I'm okay with that. Because that will kind of loosen, and then again, we can kind of reposition it to how we need. So I'm just kind of rolling it around. I'm not keeping it in one spot. You can kind of see the angle that I'm working with here, but I'm just kind of working it around. Trying to heat it all up. I can see a little bit of steam coming out, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want to be seeing. I'm seeing a lot of flex happening now. Yep. So there's a lot of movement, which is, again, ideal. That's what we're kind of aiming for. So I'm gonna go a little bit more. I'll add a little bit more water. I'll try another steam. Just kind of misting just a little bit inside of that. Not doing anything crazy. And then as this starts to heat up, I'll kind of do this one, and then I'm just gonna grab a C-clamp and we'll throw it in there and see if we can get it kind of closed. I won't worry about trying to get glue in there now because all the wood's wet and that's not going to help us. But if we can sandwich that together, it'll kind of dry in that new position, or at least closer to. And then we can look at that again in the morning. I would actually keep it clamped overnight and try and see if we can get it. But yeah, there's a lot of movement in there now. That's awesome. The other thing that's starting to happen is that the glue is separating up here a little bit, but I'm okay with it. As long as it's a nice clean line, I'm okay with it. Because then we can open it up. Gives us a little bit more moving room as well, and then we can start putting it all back together. That part actually is the easiest part. Putting the top and like the bottoms together, that's the easiest part. It's this type of stuff, trying to get these all going back and stuff. Okay, while that's hot, I am going to try to climb. I don't think the longer one's going to be necessary. Oh, maybe it is. Might actually be. Just for in the sense of me being able to get to it. Okay, that's working. It's working. This clamping system is not. But as far as what we are trying to accomplish, that's working. So that's cool. That's at least has me going in the right direction here. So because the other thing I could probably do too is actually use a trigger clamp on the outside of this. And then now with this guy too, we also have to be careful because it's going to start to get really hot because it's been on. So if we have too much heat, that's when you start burning. And I'm just trying to get it on the edge because that's really where I need it to move. As I was saying earlier, this would be the nice time for the top to come off because then I could just finger clamp them. But I have that buckle right down. It's right down. So I think what I'm gonna do, I think I have a plan. Didn't think it would be. That's why I brought reinforcements. Okay, so I'm gonna do that again because that worked. So we're gonna get it wet and not spray water all over the computer. That would be ideal. So again, it's getting pretty, like I'm getting that quite damp. Actually damp, it's beyond damp. I'm getting it very wet. And the reason why is because I want to steam that out, but I'm not gluing it. So I'm not worried about it getting too wet that I can't glue it. I'm not gluing it tonight. What I'm trying to do is steam this huge hole, or huge knuckle, if you will, back into shape. Because that's really the only part that's been misshapen. The rest of it, we can finagle in. So what I'm going to do is heat this up, get it moving, and then I'm going to spool clamp it so that it doesn't go, it doesn't start to move on us, and then I'm going to trigger clamp it across, and then hopefully that will. What I'm trying to accomplish is basically clamping this way to get the veneer onto the sides. So what my thought is this moving along? Oh yeah. So let's try it. Hopefully this just makes sense. So we're gonna do this first. We're gonna trigger clamp the sides, and this is to prevent the top from moving. Of course, getting them in position would have been smarter. Now, I'm going to squeeze that out. There's one. Get the other one close. Alright. 2. So now I've got a fair amount of tension on there. I just don't want this to all shuffle. And then we'll use this as a counterweight. And then I'm going to trigger clamp this across. And all this is doing, oh, that worked so well. So the spool clamps are holding it from moving. Now what I'm doing with the trigger clamp is basically giving me that clamping pressure that I'm looking for. At the end of the day, I'm trying to clamp the side veneer to the wood that's on the inside, and it's just this one little section that I have, this little knuckle. So that already has dried into shape. Oh, that's beautiful. I kind of just cracked it into place. I always call these repairs like chiropractic repairs because that's really what you're doing. Especially when the wood, like in this case, the wood got really damaged through the flood. But when you start to shift it, and that's why I'm saying you can really hear it from the wood. You can really hear when it starts to bind and twist and crack it on you. And that's when you know you were applying too much or just enough pressure. So that's why you have to be a little bit of a wood whisperer, I always say. So, all right, cool. Let's go take another peek at the paint on the other side. I have a feeling though that we might be getting to the point of where we're just gonna have to kind of let it sit. I don't want to be applying any tape to the backside because now there's a fair amount of paint. It's a little bit more than I thought we were gonna have to paint. Even though they're light coats, that stuff will still just start building up on you, and now we're going to start running into, you start putting, obviously, like I said, I don't want to put any tape on there, but even if you do the fabric trick, where you start putting it on you, so you're really trying to lower the tape, all I'm really trying to do is prevent any other finish to get it on there. But even with that, I think it might be a little bit too much to give us the right, to not mess with it, so. I'm going to unplug my blanket because I forgot all about that before this thing turns into 1,000 degrees. So I just unplugged that. I let that sit for a number of moments before I pick it back up and burn my hand. Actually, I've never done that, now that I think about it. But, cool, let's go to the other side. All right, man, this is fun stuff, fun stuff. So if you've been following along, you know that we have a couple broken headstocks. So here's one, and now that this is starting to actually kind of set, I really think, actually, you know what, I'm gonna come over here. I really think that I am going to call this, because I mean, even if I'm right here, and other than that one little section, we're not seeing any of that transition line. And again, this looks a little heavy, and that's just because you're seeing, well, I don't know if you can quite see that detail. But you can see almost that like haze that's sitting on top of that. And that is just the wet shellac. And as that kind of sets and cures, it will disappear and it won't be so much. And then what we're gonna do is actually come back and sand it with, 1,000 grit sandpaper, and I'll probably do, and that I'll actually do the whole thing. And now it all kind of has the same texture. And then when I start buffing and polishing that out, it will, you won't even notice that transition. But yeah, that one, I'm feeling pretty good about that one. Still don't know if I want to do any more on that because I think it's going to start to become super noticeable. here, look, let me show you the other, I'll show you the same thing again. No, actually this is a different one. Yeah, so here you can definitely see that line. You can see that seam going between it. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do there, to be honest. I think what I might do on that, to be honest, I think what I'm going to do on that is just let that sit. I think I'm going to let it cure, because we've sprayed a fair amount. There's been a fair amount of coats going on there. I think what I'm going to do before I kind of make decisions in this state is actually let it cure. So we'll let it sit overnight, and I will look at it in the morning and kind of address it then. See if we need to go back with more of the color. We've written down our mixture, I guess, as far as what we're actually doing and how we got this color, because this definitely will not be the last one of these guitars that I've seen. This is the best match I've actually had. Normally it's just a hair lighter, and all that really means is that you just need more coats. So as you just keep going, you're gonna have to do a lot more, but that was nice because it wasn't too over the top, more so on the other one, not this one, but it wasn't so much over, yeah, it wasn't really a huge issue on that. And that crack that's in the seam, so this guy right here, you can kind of see it in the right angle there. It actually is being filled up. So that's the other thing about the shellac, is it is kind of filling those voids, which it is nice that we're spraying a couple more. It's not a huge valley, but now it's very little as far as that gap that's there. The other one has been filled in entirely. You don't even notice that. So yeah, I think I'm kind of at that point now, because I've got I'm gonna let these sit, and then I have this ukulele that I'm gonna let steam take over and do its thing. So yeah, I think I'm at that point now where I think I'm just gonna call it. So just going back to this again, with this ukulele, we added the water inside of basically this tiny little knuckle. It's almost impossible to kind of show you that little separation, but it's the inside of a veneer. So we're talking super, super thin, the element that's going around the side, and in the middle of that, it's actually split, and that it just kind of separated. So all we're trying to do is just get that together, and then I don't really care if it buckles on the inside of the instrument, because it'll be on the inside, and structurally speaking, everything else around it is going to be fine. So all I'm really trying to do is kind of get that knuckle a little bit closer so that the outside looks great. And then if just that one little section, you know, whatever it is, half an inch or so, is actually fighting us, and then it doesn't want to form into shape and it's on the inside, I'm okay with that. And then that will also be a thing that I'll probably do tomorrow and see what I'm going to do. From these processes, I might save this one. I don't know. I got a whole bunch that's coming in the next couple of days, so I don't know if this is something that I'll keep for the stream or if I keep going on it. But if I do, that'd be kind of cool, because again, it's one of those things. It's like those headstocks. We started on those headstocks with literally pieces of a neck, and we've put it all together. We've filled it, and we've sprayed it, and it's starting to come together, which is great. So we have to do the black on that. It's really the same procedure as the red. You're just matching the color on that. So I think what I'm going to do is do that off camera. I think we've done enough on those headstocks for a little bit. And yeah, like I said, I got a lot that's coming in the next couple of days. I have a couple pedal board builds that's going to be coming up, which will also be pretty cool. So if you have made it this far, I greatly appreciate it. I really do enjoy having this, that I'm talking to somebody. just because normally this is what I do. I'm hanging out in the shop, and it is not something that I have a whole heck of a lot of visitors or anything like that that's just kind of sitting here chilling with me. So it's nice to actually have the someone following along and kind of checking it out. And it's fun too, because then what I've really noticed, to be honest, is actually the speed of how I've gotten through a lot of this stuff, because now I'm kind of thinking about what I want to do live, because A, it's part of an entertaining thing, but B, it's also like, well, no, I got to shoot something, I got to go live, and it's actually really helped me. The problem with having a shop in your house is that you always want to be in your house, so that's also been nice, because I've been able to clear a lot of this stuff out. So there is a ton planned, I keep saying it, but there is definitely a lot planned. I think I've got the lives, you can let me know, but I think I've got them under control as far as kind of like angles and cameras and all that kind of stuff. I just need to find a better zoom. That's the only thing I need for like some of those close-up shots. But aside from that, yeah, hopefully you're digging and just kind of checking it out. And like I said, if you've made it this far, I greatly appreciate it. And please feel free to comment some other concepts and ideas that you want to have and for us to see. And the shop just keeps putting out work and getting more and more of it, which is obviously a huge thing. I really enjoy the clients that I work with, and being able to do what I do. Yeah, we'll just kind of share the experience as it happens. That's what my lives are going to be, is really just hanging out on the bench as I work. And then I will have some other forms of content that will happen just kind of as they happen. So with that, I think I'm going to call it. And we'll see you, I think I'm going to go probably Tuesday, I think is going to be when I'm going to be live. It's starting to kind of seem that Tuesdays and Thursdays are seeming to work for me. So that may change, but in any case, I'll see you Tuesday. And as always, just keep strumming.